Chapter 29 Fleet Destruction. After many sorties with Natalia almost getting killed in an inferior TCI foxhound, Bill the Protogen and Finnegan snuck into the hangar with Natalia. Then Bill downloaded some TCI foxhound schematics and said, "I've had it with the Amazonian command structure. First, they send you on suicide missions in an incapable aircraft, knowing you didn't kill Queen Ariana. Then they don't even bother to give you the weapons to actually be effective in the missions they sent us on. And to be honest, you and that wolf should be flying the TCI interceptors, because you're the only ones here who actually have the skill to be most effective with it. But no, they put you in disposable commie planes in an old foxhound that's not even up to specs with the foxhounds the Tanuki clan uses." Finnegan then crossed his arms, brushing his tails against the floor, and said, "I know. That's why we're upgrading Natalia and that wolf's foxhound. That way, if we ever run into Yako again, we at least have a fighting chance." Bill then faced Finnegan with a concerned expression on his Protogen visor. "You say that like Yako's a person we have no chance against on our own." "Only if you don't know how to deal with him. And I do, because I know him personally. Even if we don't talk much anymore because of Inari." Natalia then said, "That reminds me of something Buck told me about when he begrudgingly had to go with our ambassador to the Kitsune clan. Said Inari was a real greedy and pretentious piece of garbage of a person." Finnegan then tilted his head with his fox ear up and paw hand out in agreement and said, "That sounds about right. And most of those in her council suck up to her with few exceptions like Yako and Vixie. Unlike the others who are mostly in her council for prestige and recognition, Vixie is someone who genuinely cares about the welfare of the clan, and Yako only does what he does because he is forced to. I almost feel bad for him in a way that he has to serve Inari head of all people. Honestly, he would be better off being Zanko's servant, because even if Zanko's kind of an airhead, she at least is a cinnamon roll and treats people way better than Inari ever does without even trying. And I also think she's kind of cute." Bill then pulled his tools out and interjected, "Still, we should get to upgrading these foxhounds so they can keep up with Natalia and that wolf guy." Bill then loaded the schematics onto his Protogen visor's augmented reality interface and got to work on Natalia's foxhound. Natalia then asked Finnegan while waiting around, "So, what was the Kitsune clan like before we left?" Finnegan then went from his usual casual tone to resentment then sadness. Finnegan then said, "It was a beautiful country, destroyed by greed. Now that's all that remains after I've been exiled. It's the rotting remains of a dead civilization." Natalia then lowered her Tanuki ears and softened her eyes. "Sounds like you don't want to talk about it. I was just curious because the government never let us partner together because of the conflict between the clans of our ancestry. And to be honest, I feel a much greater attachment to my American heritage than my Tanuki ancestry, so I didn't care about it anyway." Finnegan then looked at Natalia with respite. "That's probably a good thing. After I was exiled to America in the 2010s, I honestly found it better than the Kitsune clan, even if American life is third world in comparison. And what made it better was not the luxury or lack thereof, but the people I was with. It seems like it's the people you're with that makes life enjoyable. A good example of this was the hospitality of the American Russian Orthodox community in Alaska, because they gave me something Inari never could, a genuinely good life. That's when I saw most clearly that my clan's culture and heritage was sacrificed on the altar of avarice. And we have the image of Inari and apathy of my forefathers to thank for that, even if Victor falsely blames himself for something he didn't do. If anything, the clan needs him now more than ever, but his monastery and all the others have been abandoned, or demolished with no place for him to return to. That is, unless he returns to his sister Inari's palace of hedonism, that is." Natalia then looked disgusted as the thought of it before, saying, "Well, Buck did say there were a lot of statues of naked kitsunes in Inari's palace. And it wasn't even like the Renaissance art with appreciation for the natural form, but straight up porn. Seriously. Who decorates their house with porn so everyone can see it? That's something normal people try to hide and are ashamed of. Finnegan then crossed his arms with his ears and tails twitching just at the mention of Inari's name. Well, Inari is a very abnormal person. She was a prodigy, and felt as if she could do anything she wanted without consequence, and was successful in almost everything she did. In fact, she only considered her slightly older brother, Victor, as her equal. As for Zanko, she considered that cinnamon only slightly higher than the regulars of the clan like myself, and treated her own sister as such. So, if you ever run into Inari and she does something good for you, know that she isn't sincere, but wants something from you or because it makes her look good. She's a vixen I generally detest. I'm also tempted to say the great Tanuki mobster Don Ringtail is slightly less detestable, because unlike Inari, Don Ringtail is more the product of an ineffective government, poverty, and social unrest. Then Inari just agitates unrest between Tanukis and Kitsunes to keep them focused on each other rather than her for political convenience. And that just creates a vicious cycle of poverty and crime, with organized crime being the reason no one wants to invest in the Tanuki clan, perpetuating its poverty. Natalia then sneered while twitching her fluffy ringed tail as well. The way you describe it makes me want to beat Inari to a pulp if I ever see her. Finnegan then joked. That is if you get past Yako and the other protogens of the No Jitsune project. Then again, rip off her 3 fake tails and Yako is no longer obligated to take her orders. And unlike Inari's 10 tails, where 3 are fake, all of Yako's are real, evident by the color of his kitsune bai, which burns blue hot, as opposed to the cyan making Yako outrank Inari. And with all 9 tails, Victor kitsune bai turns violet, and can give you a sunburn if you're too close to it. But not to sound like I'm just hating on my former clan, there are still some good things I miss, like Victor, Zanko, and Vixie. Although I never met him, Victor, through his writings, has helped me reconnect with my kitsune heritage, traditional culture, and are full of good theology and advice. Natalia then felt melancholy remembering what happened to him when Yako shot down the Concordia. Finnegan then asked, Is something wrong? Natalia then said softly, Yako killed Victor. Yako killed him when he shot down the Queen's Concordia. Finnegan then looked at Natalia with shock and disbelief. Hold on, wait. You're not making this up, are you? Natalia then said, I'm not making this up. Queen Ariana was the only person on the Concordia. There was also Buck, Titania, and Victor. Bill then finished his work on the TCI Foxhounds and said, Before you make Finnegan rant about how he wants to kill Inari now that you mentioned her slave killed Victor, I will have you know my sensors detected Buck was still alive a few days after that happened. So, there's still a chance he could be out there and Victor along with him. Finnegan then said, I don't want to get my hopes up too high. I will believe it when I see it. Natalia then perked her ears and tailed up and asked, Wait, if you can see if Buck is still alive, can you check right now to confirm he's dead or not? Bill then answered, Yes, I'll do that right now. Bill then used his protogen augmentation to scan the database area within 50-mile radius as he made the dial-up modem sound with his augmentations. Bill then said after he was finished, Yep, Buck's still alive and he's not that far away, only about 5 miles. Natalia then asked, Can you call him on a secure channel to make sure he's still alright? Heck, why not? I know you two are lovebirds for a while now. Bill then radioed Buck on a secure channel and Buck answered, Bill, I thought I was the only agent left out here, thank God. Bill then said, Actually, it was Natalia that put me up to calling you. Finnegan is also here if you want to talk to him too. Natalia is there too? Just where are you guys? We're about 5 miles from your location. It's some Amazonian airbase. It's great to get the team back together and get off this rock. Well, I'd just like to see Natalia again. Finnegan then asked curiously, By any chance do you know if Victor is with you? Buck then said, Oh yeah, he literally saved us multiple times. First by making sure we survived the Concordia's crash and then transforming into an actual fox to scout out the safest way forward. We also have my asset, Titania, Queen Ariana, and the Royal Guards, Jeremiah, and Edenthiel all with us. You wouldn't believe how useful Titania's plant manipulation magic is. Natalia then asked, what about Agron and Sylvia? They're with us too, and their dragon. And Ariana sure loves dragon milk, says it helps her with not turning into a werewolf at night. And oh boy, does she turn into a werewolf at night. But I guess that happens when you're secretly a master of Moonslayer magic and get exposed to too much moonlight. Then I'll be happy to see you after the sortie. Just don't die on me. Fleet destruction. As Yako's squadron was aboard the Confederate carrier CSS Jackson, Inari projected herself through the holographic display so that she could have a word with the Admiral. Then she said, as a reminder, these are my kitsunes, and they will no longer contribute to your effort once they have completed the test flights in actual combat. From then on, you will need to buy their model of aircraft from us if you wish to use them in your war effort. But take heed. Because we have no stake in either side of this conflict, the Celanese Queenum is just as much of a customer as you are. Meanwhile, at the Amazonian Air Base, the base commander briefed Furry Squadron. It has come to my attention that the Confederacy has created a blockade on our western coastline to prevent us from getting logistics to the Mikwagon province. That is a problem. Without Amazonia's logistic support, Mikon will fall to the Confederates in a few weeks. And unfortunately, we have to use old communist-era cargo planes and trains to get troops and supplies to Mikwagon, which are all easy targets for even the most inexperienced Confederate forces. That leaves the most efficient means, especially during the coming winter, by sea. But until we can gain air superiority over the North Amazonian Sea, we have no means to defend our western port. And that's where you come in. Your task is to sink that carrier and destroy as many of their fighters as possible. To complete this, you will not be flying your normal Foxhounds. Instead, you will be flying TCI interceptors, because it is the only aircraft we have on hand that is stealthy enough to get within effective range of that fleet, undetected, and put up a fight against the air superiority fighters if any of you happen to run into a Night Stalker. I should also mention that carrier and cruisers are equipped with radar-guided railguns and lasers, so your TCI interceptors have been equipped with radar jammers and deployable reflectors in short-range radar-seeking missiles. Because either the carriers or one of those cruisers locks onto you, it only takes one shot from a railgun and two laser pulse, without your reflector system activated. So while you have the element of surprise, target their radars and thermal imaging first, while some of you target the catapults to ensure the carrier can't launch any fighters. Then those of you who have bunker busters will target the carrier because of your lack of anti-ship missiles. And then after the carrier is sunk, the regular forces can clean up the rest. This will be the last suicide mission, because it seems we cannot afford to waste anyone, not even convicts like yourselves. Consider yourselves lucky. James Wolfe then said, finally, a weapon platform I can use instead of this commie trash. Only until this mission is over. Afterwards, you and Kun will be going back to your Black Cat and Foxhound. Now, prepare for your sortie. Furry Squadron then got in their TCI interceptors, and James Wolfe asked, how does it feel to be in an actual weapons platform? Natalia then answered, I've been in bed, but it's much better than that Foxhound. I can't believe this post-Soviet style province still flies them. Right, Night Stalker Ace and Scapegoat. I'd like to see who shoots down Yako first. If anyone shoots down Yako, it's gonna be me. Remember, I saved you the first time we ran to Yako, and Foxboy and Protogen here saved us both. Finnegan then said, Wolfie is right, you know. We're a skulk, and that lone Tanuki stuff stays behind. James Wolfe then said, against Ace of Aces like Yako, taking him on alone is how you get eaten. And that's why the pack sticks together so we can rip him apart and eat his liver. You didn't need to explain it in that much detail. That's just how the Wolf Pack does things. Work together, and we stay alive. Furry Squadron then switched over to ultra-high output ion engines to hide their heat signature while approaching the carrier strike group. Finnegan then planned with Furry Squadron. If I remember correctly, this carrier is one of the older American designs, So we're going to need to get some extra speed to make sure these bunker busters pierce the hull of that ship. So here's the plan. We're going to approach the ship at full throttle only a couple dozen feet above the water. And at full throttle we should be able to reach Mach 2.8 and release the bunker busters as close as possible. That way our bomb should have enough speed to get through multiple layers designed to make anti-ship missiles and torpedoes ineffective. And if we're lucky, one of us should hit the reactor core and completely disable the carrier. Then we essentially have free reign to sink it, and some other ships if we still have bunker busters left over. James Wolfe then said, I thought we were only here to sink that carrier and be done with this suicide mission. You know what the command structure really wants us to do. They want us to smash that fleet while they still can. And for a province that really only has a bunch of leftover commie trash, a near indestructible fleet mobile airbase with superior airport power is absolutely terrifying. And they expect us to sink a carrier with only a few bunker busters and air superiority fighters. Considering Tanuki fighters are the best Amazonia can reasonably afford, this is probably their best bet. After all, the Tanukis are quite resourceful in being able to make what is essentially a stripped-down Night Stalker at a fraction of the cost. And knowing that carrier is an old 2060s design, we should have enough stealth to get right in front of it before the radars detect us. And by then, we'll have already jammed them and destroyed them with our radar-seeking missiles. Right, and what about escort fighters and support craft? We're fast enough. We'll be able to be there before they even show up. Finnegan then commanded his squad to put their TCI interceptors full throttle 20 feet above the water. And once they were within range of the Confederate fleet, Furry's squadron activated their radar jammers and fired a massive volley of radar-seeking missiles, with almost all of them destroying the radars of the carriers, cruisers, and completely destroying the early warning aircraft before they could even activate countermeasures. Furry's squadron then released multiple bunker busters directly in front of the carrier, with James Wolfe's bunker buster exploding near the reactor core, disabling the carrier. Furry's squadron then split off, hitting multiple cruisers with bunker busters, sinking them along with the carrier that began to tilt while taking on water. Then, while not waiting to take part in a lost cause, Yako's squadron abandoned their posts and began their return flight to the Kitsune clan. Meanwhile, Furry's squadron was making their way back to Amazonia. Natalia then picked up Yako's squadron and retreated and asked, Why aren't we going after Yako's squadron? We're in better planes and they have no backup and are poorly equipped. James Wolfe then asked, Do you really want to take guns to a missile fight? Well, no. Then why intercept them? Because they attempt to man the lives of the people I love. They lived, didn't they? Yes. Then why go after Yako? You've already gotten him running scared if it's not even engaging anyone. Even when he was a prejudice against Tanukis, and the skill to match. Finnegan then said, Wolf's right. Our target was the carrier, not Yako. Besides, you saved more lives sinking that carrier and those submarines than you would have going after Yako. I know it hurts, Natalia, but making sure you and the rest of those close to us are safe is more important than Yako. Besides, Inari is probably going to give him some good punishment for fleeing from a Tanuki and an Inu. That being you and Wolf. You might just make Inari wet herself. James Wolfe then laughed. Ha! That makes my day. Serves her right with how she looks at us Inus and Tanukis. Natalia then said, Not sure how I feel about being made famous or infamous in the Kitsune clan. It was already bad enough when the Valkyries broke into my house, and now I might just have to deal with 8-tailed protogens. Finnegan then said, Inari wouldn't be stupid to send Nojitsune protogens after you in another country. Sure, she might be arrogant, but she's far from stupid. And I should stop talking about her, because I doubt you want to listen to me rant about a vixen I very much despise. It's tempting to listen to gossip, but I probably shouldn't. Besides, I'm more interested in seeing Buck and Titani when we get back to base. For me, it's finally getting to meet Victor and getting off this rock. Inari's wrath. As Yako remained prostrate before his master Inari, her paw hands burned with cyan flames. She then ripped off his protogen visor and burned his forehead with her kitsune bai. She then threw Yako on his belly and yelled, "You're a failure, Yako. You cowardly ran from a tanuki and took your squad with you. This is unacceptable." Then, through the burning sensation and small amounts of bleeding, Yako said, "Master, it was a lost cause, and I did it to save them." "Do I look like I care about them? All that matters is you doing what I say, and you disobeyed me." Vixie then looked with horror at what Inari was doing to Yako and commanded, "Inari, stop this at once," as Vixie had one paw hand on her concealed ethereal blade. Inari then noticed this and stopped punishing Yako with the same and physical force. Inari then faced Vixie. "Aren't you my executor, meant to fulfill my will and not order me around?" Vixie then responded, "I am your executor, and what you're doing is not right. Yako did no evil in saving his friends from certain death and retreating." "You call them friends?" "They are kitsunes, just as much as you and I. It's shameful you can't see that." "But they are lower kitsunes. I am the image of Inari, and they are my extension. The only thing you're an image of at the moment is your own ego." Inari then clenched her paw hand and said, "I would not defy my master if I were you." Vixie then said, "You are not my master. I serve a god higher than you, and for that I serve our people for their good. You either lay down your wrath and retribution, or I will end your charade right here and right now." Inari then notices the violet kitsune bai on Vixie's 9 tails, and the only cyan kitsune bai on her own tails. Inari then concedes and leaves Yako alone as Vixie wipes some of the blood off Yako's face with her veil. Inari then said, "Take him with you, because he's not allowed in my palace until he relearns what it means to serve his master." Vixie then takes Yako to her small home in the side of a hill, and rests him on her bed. Then her tanuki servant Dixie treated his wounds, knowing Yako truly didn't hate her for being a tanuki. Dixie then cleaned off some of more blood while patching him up and said, "I understand if you feel the need to hide your true self. If only we weren't forced to hate each other." Yako then said, "Thanks, Dixie. I at least know you're not like the others." "We don't have to look like each other to show we care. And there's plenty of good people on both sides, even if our rulers make it seem like there's not." "Well, even if there are, I'm not sure if I can ever forget what the Tanukis did to my family so many centuries ago. And for that, I could never forget, even if there are more Tanukis like you. Just like how I can't forget what the Kitsune clan did to mine, even if there are others like you and Vixie. Say, why don't you just rest up and I'll take care of you? It's nice to have some company while in recovery. And you should really stop listening to that Inari lady with how she treats you. My clan has no tolerance for people like that." Yako then dismissively said, "At least she maintains order and prosperity." Dixie then looked with concern. "But is it really prosperity and order if you're always afraid of what she might do to you? That honestly sounds more like a veiled threat to me. Don't you care about anything beyond being Inari's slave?" Yako then contemplated for a moment Dixie's question. "Sometimes, like saving Fennec, Glacia, and Ferucion from making stupid decisions. There's also earning my 9th tail, but knowing what I did to Moshi, who is one of your clan's greatest heroes, I will never be pure enough to earn it." Dixie then warmly put her paw hand on Yako. "I don't know much about how you kitsunes get your tails, but I know from reading Friar Victor's writings that one doesn't exactly earn their 9th tail. There's also his famous quote about humility, where Victor said, 'Those who seek power for power's sake will only find delusion in their own death. But those who die to such passions and humble themselves to see their own weakness will begin to find life. And I think you, seeing yourself as imperfect, and that you can't do this all by yourself, is the first step in gaining a ninth tail. After all, you couldn't have gotten your eighth tail without at least some humility. Yako then sighed. Well, at least Vixie is humble, and so are Victor and Todd, and you probably wouldn't guess them any different from any other kitsune if you didn't know their history. If only Victor was here to rule the clan instead of Inari. Not sure how that would work out, but I don't think we should be idle about our situation, because like he'd say, we don't live in the past or the future, but the ever-changing timeline of the present. So the question is about what we should have done or will do in the future, but what good can we do right now? And for now, that's making sure you get better.